background on me. I don't want to spend a lot of time with it, but after having there were track days then, there was no Thunder Hill, there was no button oil. It was show up, go to new rider school, and do the racing. So you survive or you don't survive. And I quickly realized that I sucked. I sucked. And it wasn't that I didn't have maybe the ability to do it, but I didn't have the training to make that happen. And so that sort of started my journey to get good at this sport. As I went through that and got training, I did my first professional road race at age 41, was top 10 in AMA Superbike at age 41, and was professional 41 to 43. That has sort of morphed into the training that I do now. And then at the very sharp end of the training that I do, to give you an idea of sort of where we're at the sharp end of the sport, in Moto America, when we had the RIC team, if you looked at it as a percentage at the RIC team, we ended up with about 141 podiums in 3 years with the RIC team in Moto America. So our riders, when we showed up, we had about a 90% chance of making the podium, about a 60% chance of winning. So not too horrible. So what we realized though is that regardless if we're teaching people at the last part of the sport or at the beginning, it doesn't matter. The techniques are the same. It's just the degree of application changes. So how that works for anybody, everybody, is simply, it's a sport. This is a sport. So if it's a sport, then you can train for it. So it's not that you didn't start riding a dirt bike when you were 9, or your dad was a motocross pro. It's just something that you haven't trained for, and you certainly can train for it. Here today, even we're doing a little school to feel like a pro. We're on, oh my gosh, we're on Ninja 400s. You can't do that. No, it's training, and training is training. So let's talk about that real quick, which is when we look at a sport ends up having 3 elements. We have your technique and your craft, you have your mental fitness, and then your physical fitness. All 3 of those have to be trained for that sport to be able to happen. So whether it's you're working on your technique or your craft, your mental fitness or your physical fitness, in motorcycling, it's the exact same thing. So you're either working on your technique or your craft, or your physical or mental fitness. And the point is that it can absolutely be trained. So regardless of where you're at in the sport, it doesn't matter. If you have the desire to do it, you can get better at it. And you don't have to necessarily be on the bike to make it happen. We separate skill objectives or knowledge objectives from skill objectives. There's more knowledge objectives than there are skill objectives. So even off the bike, you can do a massive amount of training. Whether it's, I've got a podcast series, you can listen to the podcast series. Whether it's reading articles, you can simply get a track map out and work on reference points, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do off the bike to get better at this sport. And I think the big part of this is, and sort of been the real hallmark to what I do, is I'm lucky enough that I've worked with a lot of great world champions. I've got a great internal group that I get to work with. I've got one of my instructors, George Grass, is here as well today. And through doing this for so many years with so many students, we've literally developed the fundamentals for our sport. So it's like you look at baseball or football or hockey, right? They have all these fundamentals. They have practice. They warm up like a professional sport does. But yet why don't we do that in our sport? Why don't we have written fundamentals? Well, we do have written fundamentals. So what are the fundamentals of our sport? What should we be doing? And there's simply the fundamentals that we work on, the fundamentals that we've developed. It starts with bike placement. There's 6 fundamentals. Bike placement. So the definition of bike placement is placing the bike in the optimum position for the exit, on the entry and the exit, right? So we want to have the bike in a position to accelerate. So by figuring out what type of radius that corner is, what kind of corner is it? Is it an exit corner, or entry corner, balance corner, whatever it is, putting your bike in the best possible position to accelerate off the corner. So that's why we work so hard on the first fundamental, bike placement. The second one is our vision and focus. So we're constantly working on our vision and focus, understanding what reference points are, how long you should look at them, what are the report cards for getting a reference point correct, what's the report card for getting a reference point wrong, and we go through those. The third one, the fundamental we work on, is our motor controls. All the inputs you're telling the bike. So your initial brakes, your initial throttle, how you move on the bike, how you move your eyes. Those are all motor controls that are telling the motorcycle what to do. And the fourth one is our brake adjustability. Brake adjustability, how we use the brakes to adjust for the different radius corners. And then the fifth one we look at is turning rate and turning point. And then we look at the last fundamental, which is body position and body timing. So it's super important to realize that those are all your fundamentals, but there's also a specific order to the fundamentals. You can sit there and work on body position all day long, but if you can't use your eyes and you can't use your brakes, yeah, you might look great for the pictures and that's what you want, that's awesome, but that's not going to get you better in the long run. So there absolutely is a way to improve in the sport, is to treat it like it's a sport and to work the fundamentals. So you got to hang in there with that.
Which starts at track days.